Welcome, everybody. Hello, everyone. So I'm at a weird location today, and you'll have to bear with me. This is not somewhere I would normally teach a class from, but we have so many stories for today and so many things that have happened, and I bet you guys are all dying to know why our class was rescheduled last week as well. So just a little bit about my location where I'm filming from so that you guys kind of know what's going on. I'm actually in a post-acute stroke rehab center with my mother. And so last week, I don't know if you guys know, some of you might know this, but my mom has been a missing person for 8 years. And last week we got a random phone call that they had found my mother and she was in hospital in rural Texas and she'd had stroke. And so this was the day that I was supposed to teach a class. So you can imagine I jumped on an airplane and flew out to Texas. And that's why our class was rescheduled. She is recovering. She is doing okay. It's definitely a long story to tell and one that we're not going to be sharing too much publicly right now, just for her safety. But you know, she was so cute. She's like, you can post this on your TikTok and your YouTube and make money. And I said, oh no, mommy, we're not making money from this. So um, so she's really cute. She's really supportive of what I do. But I told her, like, no, we're not gonna make this, you know, a big thing. And so that's where I was. But I think, you know, everything happens for a reason. And I feel like there's a lot of beautiful lessons I've learned over the past week that can really help with this class and help us understand generational trauma and things like that. But yeah, my mom is recovering and we have her in the best place possible. That all they do is stroke and neurological rehabs here, and they're well rated and they have great staff. So we're very grateful to them for helping her, and we're hoping she's going to make a full recovery. So that's where I was. That's why I'm in a location that looks totally different than my normal office. I'm sitting in a conference room at the hospital. They gave me this conference room to utilize. So yeah, so this class is about generational trauma, and you guys are here to learn about generational trauma. And oh my goodness, I've learned even more about generational trauma this week because, you know, with my mother, she tended to continue to find and marry narcissists throughout her life. And I've seen these patterns of family that has either been entangled with narcissists or have become narcissists themselves. And so I think with generational trauma, you know, I want to start and talk about narcissism. Now, before we get too far into, just I want to remind you guys that I'm not a licensed therapist. I am not you know, an expert on this topic. This is not mental health advice. This is coming from a spiritual standpoint. This is coming from a standpoint of someone who, you know, is a certified trauma life coach, but it certainly doesn't replace any kind of care from those wonderful licensed practitioners. So when we look at narcissism, narcissists are created, they're not born, okay? And they are created through emotional, physical neglect and abuse, and they are empaths that are highly damaged, and they go into a dark space of protecting themselves. And so I always use the example of when we look at Darth Vader and Star Wars. So if you guys are Star Wars fans and you've watched all those shows, we saw the progression of how Darth Vader wasn't always a bad person, right? But Darth Vader ended up becoming a bad person because of the things that happened in his life and the way that he was treated. And so we can see this perpetuating generational trauma, where when we think about generational trauma, if we don't heal it, it gets passed on. And it gets passed on generation to generation to generation. And then we get to where we are and we're like, why are our lives so chaotic? Why is our health so chaotic? Why do we feel so stuck? Because some of these things are ingrained in our DNA, right? And so in my family, the patterns of, you know, being with narcissistic partners or being physically or emotionally or sexually abused is perpetuated in our DNA, right? It's things that have happened generation after generation after generation. And so healing generational trauma is not just breaking these patterns, but it's also about healing the DNA. And when we heal our DNA, we're healing at a soul level. And I was talking to one of my clients today, and I was telling him, I was like, when we do our healing work, it is so important to set the intention that the healing work is not just healing us now in the present moment, but it's healing our past versions, but also it's healing on all levels, all dimensions, throughout time, throughout generations, both previous, present, and future. And that's why a lot of us are like, I've done my healing work, but why do these things keep happening? Why do they keep popping up? And they keep doing these things because we've healed one layer, one dimension. And when you look at us as spiritual beings, we are multifaceted and multi-layered. And I had a book, I was going to show you a picture, but if you can envision, we're like layers of a cake, that we have layer after layer after layer of our energy field and our auric field. And when I work with clients, I specifically look at 3 of those layers, which are the consciousness, the subconscious, and the soul layer, or the higher self, whatever you want to refer to that as, same thing. The subconscious layer is where we often see generational and personal trauma stick, right? The things that dictate us, how things work, the weird reactions that we're like, why am I reacting that way? Why is my body reacting that way? Why are we doing these things? All kind of come from that subconscious energy that we're carrying with our bodies. And so we often don't even know that we're carrying this, right? There's a lot of great studies. If you're really wanting to get into this really in depth, I highly recommend Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, looking at the work of others who are studying epigenetics. And epigenetics is the study of how generational traumas are passed on from generation to generation to generation. And, there's many studies that have been done. I would love to talk to you about an experience I had with another client. And she was this amazing Zen master yoga teacher. And she comes in and she has adrenal insufficiency. Now, spiritually, adrenal issues are caused by trauma. They're caused by fight or flight being triggered and the body going into hyperdrive. But with her, through my scans and also through talking to her, we realized this woman had no significant traumas in her life, right? Nothing that was, anything that would have elicited a fight or flight response in her body. And so I said, okay, well, let me talk to your subconscious and ask why you're in fight or flight. And so when I go in and I do sessions with my clients, sometimes I see visions, sometimes spirit speaks through me, and we transcribe with this. I was taken to a vision, and I saw this vision of a woman frantically running through the forest, just run along, and she was hiding behind trees, and I could feel her heart thump, and she was running away from soldiers. And I was like, well, this is weird. And then the woman, she saw me and she looked at me, she goes, I'm Jewish, And I was like, interesting. So I came back and I told my client, I said, well, I saw this, and this woman told me that she and you are Jewish. Is that true? And the woman was like, yes. And I think you saw my grandma. My grandma ran from the Nazis during World War II, I believe, for 3 months through the forests of Germany, hiding and getting into safety. And we're like, well, holy crapola, we've figured out where the generational trauma came from. And if we think about past generations, and we still see a lot of this today, but people are becoming much more aware that we can't just suck it up anymore, right? But past generations, one of my grandfather's favorite sayings was, suck it up, buttercup, get over it, And that was a really common thing that they would teach, was just suck it up. Kids are resilient, nothing, stop your whining, very much like there's no time for emotions. And, if you think about people who were in, like her grandmother, like a war situation, she had no time to process her emotions or do meditations. She was like, I got to get to safety, right? And then once she gets to safety, there was no therapy, there was no options of like, let's talk this out, let's process your trauma, let's help you heal. She was probably just thrown into another survival situation. How do I find a place that's safe to live and away from danger? And, and it was like not something that was like, okay, it happened once, but it was over days and months. And so this gets ingrained in the DNA. They've recently done a lot of study on Holocaust victims that have concluded that after the Holocaust, people who experienced the Holocaust, they passed down the ability to be either more resilient or less resilient to their posterity, to their ancestors. They've done studies with the Irish potato famine. They found out that people who have their ancestors have experienced the Irish potato famine, which I have some Irish genetics. When they go into fight or flight, they literally stop losing weight, right? Because holy crap, we might starve to death. Keep all that pudge on. And funny story, when we were going to pick up my mom, we were running on a lot of sleep and no food because, I'm vegan. And if you can imagine, I was in barbecue territory. It was really hard to find food that I eat. I'm not a picky person. And I was like, that's fine. I'll eat an apple or I'll just get me a salad. And so I was existing on probably 500 calories a day, which wasn't great. I don't recommend. But I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get home and I bet I've lost 5 pounds because I barely ate and I'm helping lift my mom in and out of a, wheelchair and in and out of a minivan. No, I got home and I had gained 2 pounds. And I was like, how? And then I was like, oh yeah, I had triggered a cortisol response. I had triggered fight or flight, and my body goes, we're in danger. You better save every food and every bit of energy you can. And so I was just like, good grief. God bless America. Thank you, genetics. But this is why we see so many things perpetuated, like heart disease that runs in family and different illnesses that people are like, oh, that runs in the family. Those are all connected to epigenetics, right? So for my family, strokes run in the family. And I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about the medical intuition about like strokes and different things that kind of like why that would run in the family. Because, we look at the emotion of these things. Okay. And so when we look at a stroke, spiritually, why does someone have a stroke? I feel useless. I feel hopeless. I feel inadequate, overwhelming pressure and stress, unable to handle the situation you're in, giving up, feeling like a failure, shutting down, not failing to understand why and what you did not work. So my mother, for her stroke, we were like, hey, Mom, what happened? How'd you have this stroke? So she had been living with a guy that was essentially a cult leader and had brainwashed her and cut her off from family, wouldn't let her contact us. And then he was forcing her to paint murals. She's a very accomplished artist, to paint murals and windows to support them. Now, he didn't work and he didn't lift a finger, but he would make her work, right? And she had told us, she said, I've been trying to get in contact and I've been trying to get away from him and I didn't know how, and he wouldn't let me contact you guys. And so he was also telling her she could drink hot water to cure her diabetes. Anyways, I digress. We had a whole conversation about how God inspires people to make medications that help us. Um, but so she had just finished painting a mural and it was in the hot sun and she had the high blood pressure and the diabetes, which run in the family, and strokes also run in the family. And so she had gotten to the point where all of those emotions that had been carried through generations, not just with her, but her ancestors, it come to the culmination of like, I can't take this anymore. And her body says, I'm done. I give up. I'm done. And she had a stroke. Now, really funny, one of my cousins is visiting right now, and she's with my husband, and my cousin are with my mom right now. And my cousin goes, oh yeah, I had a stroke 6 years ago too. And my grandpa had a stroke. And I had a TIA last year, and those things run in the family, right? And so when they say these things run in the family, it's saying not only did your ancestors experience these emotions, but you are as well. And so when we experience the same emotions as our ancestors, then it even triggers those family genetics even more, right? Now, some of us might be, well, that sucks, is there any way of overcoming this? Absolutely, right? Because when we know what's going on with the family, then we know what to heal and what to focus on, right? And so we can combat those things by obvious means like diet, exercise, eating healthy, but also examining the emotions and saying, okay, are we repeating family experiences? What family experiences are we repeating? And how can we mitigate those experiences so that they don't continue to happen, right? Now, I sure hope I'm working on it. You never know. I keep getting thrown in these situations and I'm like, oh my goodness, how are we going to work on this? But you know, when you know that it exists, it gives you a platform to start that healing, right? And so with our family, we're like, okay, those emotions of stroke, the useless, the hopeless, the inadequacies, the pressure, the stress, that tells us that we need to manage those things more, that we need to, when we're under stress, go, it's okay. I can handle things. Life is easy for me. When situations are hard and we feel like it's hard to handle, we can say, I can handle any situation. I'm not a failure. I don't need to give up. I don't need to shut down. Life is not hopeless, right? I am able to understand how to change my life. And so shifting those emotions can really help us. Now, of course, going back to the cult leader she was living with who said she could cure diabetes by water, right? This is only one step of the process, right? We have physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. And so spiritually, we work on those spiritual sides. And then also we say, okay, my family tends to have strokes. What can I do on the physical side? Eating better, losing weight. If you have high blood pressure, managing those things. And I'm a big proponent of creating a strong foundation of healing. And so for me, and I apologize, guys, my hair is crazy, crazier than normal. That I have multiple things I need to work on, right? So if I'm working on the spiritual, I'm working on these things. I'm like, I'm strong enough. I'm good enough. Life is not hopeless. It's easy, right? All those affirmations are very powerful and wonderful. But if I'm running around weighing, I weigh 240 right now. I'm not going to, I don't hide how big I am. Whoa, the lights went off in here. Woo. I'm not going to have to be like, I'm not going to be like, okay, I can do affirmations to get myself out of poor eating habits and things like that, right? We build and we create a strong foundation of healing, and we don't go to extremes. We just understand like there's many facets of that healing. And so with generational traumas and how it's carried through the family, we see those patterns both in physical wellness, mental health. We see those patterns. And this is the other thing we see patterns in is how people's lives play out. And my husband and I have noticed pattern after pattern. I've noticed my daughter repeating the same mistakes I made. I noticed like my son, when he was deployed in the army, he got deployed to the same area that my grandpa grew up in. Like all of these things. And if you start to look at these weird little synchronicities, you'll be like, holy shit, you're getting drawn back over here. And these lessons keep repeating because, we're all one. We're repeating lifetimes, we're repeating energies, we're repeating experiences because as a family group, we all decided, hey, let's be a family because we want to learn the same things. We want to do the same things. We want to understand and manage these experiences together as spiritual beings in this temporary human existence, right? And so you will see these things repeat because we've all made the agreement to join as a family to heal, right? And some people heal and some people don't. And I can see emotions being triggered in the experiences, and you will see repeated experiences. So looking at repeated experiences, my son had strokes last year. My cousin had strokes. My grandpa had strokes. My mom had strokes, right? And part of these experiences, one for me, we look at the situations. What am I learning? Well, one, besides learning not to be hopeless and things like that, we're also learning, oh, I need personal boundaries because I'm an empathic healer type. And so, whereas with my son, I just stressed myself out to the nth degree and never took a break and never did anything besides help him nonstop. With my mom, I'm like, hey, mom, I'm going to go home and take a nap and then I'll come back. Hey, I'm going to go eat some food. And we don't neglect ourselves to benefit others, right? And so it's this weird little balancing act of learning how do we manage these things spiritually, emotionally, and physical. When we have repeating experiences, what are these teaching us, both for ourselves, for our ancestors, for the generations behind us, and the generations in front of us? When I started spiritually examining generational trauma, what I saw was a big chain and a big heavy metal chain. And to this metal chain spiritually, I saw each family member connected to the chain, right? Now, we can stay connected to the chain or we can break free from that chain, right? But the goal would be when we look at healing generational trauma, it's not just breaking our chains, but helping others break their chains too, right? And so breaking those chains looks different for everyone. But the one thing when you're doing your healing work, whether it's working with a therapist, doing EMDR, tapping, meditation, prayer, is setting your intentions and saying, I dedicate this healing session, this yoga session, whatever this is, to not only healing myself, but please send this healing backwards in time, forwards into the future, sideways on all levels, all dimensions, up and down. And as we go on, I'm going to lead you guys through a meditation for this. But really, that's how we're going to heal beyond just ourselves. That's how we're going to heal generations, is by setting those intentions to heal not just us, but others, because we are all one and we are all interconnected. And I will say, there are family members I don't agree with, that I have no contact with, that, and we're like, oh, do I have to heal those people too? Yes. Send it to them too. Don't skip it over. Doesn't mean you have to talk to them. Doesn't mean they're right or wrong. It just means, hey, I'm going to send you some healing because I know we're connected. And I know that your healing is also my healing, right? And that's the most important thing to remember with families and generations. Your healing is their healing is your healing. So for me, I started my healing journey, I think I was about 35, right? And so I had been a parent since I was 17. So the children that I parented after I started healing are much differently equipped than the children that I had prior to my healing, right? And so I have healing work to do with my older children much more than I do with my younger children, because my mothering skills were much different with my younger children, right? But there's still things to heal, right? And so we always say you do the best you know. Let me say the best that you knew how at the time. And so we're not going to be worrying about the past and saying, oh, I made a mistake and this caused this problem or that. We're going to say we did the best we could. And that's okay. There's no judgments of where we were, where we were going. We're just doing the best that we can with all of this. And the hope is that through our healing, others can heal. And I can see in my family, like my sister and my sister became a therapist, I became a life coach. We've done some healing work. And so we are much differently equipped than the rest of the family. So while everybody else was freaking out about our mom, like me, I was calm. I mean, I cried, of course. I'm not gonna lie. I cried because I was like, holy crap. But I was more calm. I was able to direct everybody that was over emotional. I was able to say, okay, this is the plan. This is what we're doing. Everybody breathe, and manage everything. And when everybody's freaking out, I'm like, okay, guys, I'm not doing this right now. I love you too much to argue. I'm stepping back and you guys need to breathe. And so I have different coping skills now. Whereas someone in our family who has not gone through those same coping skills is freaking out, making multiple phone calls, and they're trying to control the situation. And so we see that with narcissists, where like they feel like I lost control and I need to control. And so while this person may or may not be a narcissist, and that's not my place to diagnose, they went into I need to control this situation because I've had this trauma before. So if you see yourself feeling like I need to control something in a family dynamic or force someone to heal or force someone to change, that is something to examine, because everyone has agency and we can't control other people, right? And so we have to be like, hey, you need to do your stuff and I need to do my stuff. We can't let their emotions affect us, but we can send them that healing, right? You can send healing to your siblings' direction, your parents' direction, your grandparents' direction. I am one person that I'm like, I will send healing with the intention that if they're still alive, or even if they're not, that it's their choice to accept the healing, but I'm going to send them that extra energy, because if I'm going to do the work, they have the opportunity to have that work done too. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to post in the comments. But, generational trauma is not something that I have found is a simple healing process, that there's many layers to it, right? Because we have years and generations upon generations of trauma. And so those things are not always a fast process. There are still times that we need to set boundaries with family, whether it's, one generation back or five. Um, like I have a grandmother who's a ghost, and she likes to hang around the kids. And I had to tell her, hey, grandma, you're fine to hang around with us, but please don't stare at my kids when they sleep. It creeps them out. Right. And so we have a very weird spiritual house. So, do we also need to heal past life traumas? Yeah. And, I think that this generational trauma class and this healing, goes into that as well, right? Because that's when we talk about that healing. I heal in the past, present, future, but also through dimensions, sideways, up and downs, all layers and levels, because, you know, there's different timelines, right? There's theories that we actually live on multiple timelines right now, right? Some people even have theories that when we dream, we're actually experiencing an alternate timeline or an alternate life, right? And so that's why we say these words, because I don't know how many lifetimes I've lived. My intuition's like a lot, you know, but I don't know how many concurrent lifetimes I'm living now. I could be living 2 or 3 or 5. I don't know. So for me, I'm like, let's just get a big blanket and cover everything, right? Let's send this to everything, to everyone, to all versions of me, all versions of my family, so that I'm covering all my bases, so that I'm understanding those things. And so that is kind of usually what I look at for that. You've never heard that your dreams may be other timelines. Thank you for sharing that. Of course. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I recently heard that, and I can tell you, like, I've had some wonky doodle dreams. Sometimes my dreams are dreams of other people's experiences, and sometimes they're me in very different lifetimes and very different experiences. And I always wonder, I'm like, am I living in a different lifetime and I'm experiencing one reality when I'm awake and one when I'm asleep? I don't know, right? And I would encourage all of you to use your intuition and ask your intuition if that feels true to you and if it's true for you. But I also wouldn't let it make you bonker crazy, wondering about like, oh, how many times am I living in? We can go down these rabbit holes that can make us go off the spiritual deep end really easy. And so I love to contemplate and think about these topics, but I also don't want to let them make me go like totally like, oh yeah, like there's some people that go off some spiritual deep ends and they can get really weird. So, your mileage may vary, but that's my opinion on that. So usually now, halfway into the class is when we're going to start kind of our healing meditation. I am probably going to not lead as long as I normally do, because I'm if you guys haven't noticed, I'm a little tired. I'm a little kind of like low energy today. Carolyn says, I was thinking the same question as Vivi. It's not repeating past life mistakes in this lifetime. Wait, hold on. Is not repeating the past life mistake in this lifetime enough to break the generational trauma? It depends, right? You think about it this way. When you were a kid, if you reached out and touched something hot, usually that was enough to be like, I never want to touch something hot again. But not always, right? Some people keep touching hot things and they keep expecting them not to be hot, right? And so some people, one experience is enough. For other people, they need to have multiple experiences to have those things ingrained in them. I tend to be the type of person I have to learn by the school hard knocks, and it's usually more than once, where the lessons are like beat into me. So here's an example of a repeating generational pattern. When I was a younger person, I struggled a lot with maintaining and paying for car loans. And so I would struggle with a car payment, have a car repossessed, buy it from a place that was charging me 30% interest and a payment that was way too high. And then I go buy another one. And I just keep repeating this cycle of bad vehicles that would break down and high payments and just problems, right? Well, fast forward, my daughter has the same issue, right? She keeps getting into bad cars that are breaking down. And, so we can see how that tendency, but also that energy of desperation and stress got passed to her. And so she had a very similar life experience where she was pregnant young, had a domestic abuse situation, left her ex, and it put her in a bad position. And so that was both of our experiences, right? It was also partially my mother's experience where she would get with bad men as well. And so we see this generational thing of women who get with abusive partners and get in desperate situations. And then they make decisions based on desperation. And that desperation energy continues to pass on, right? And so then all of us end up with bad cars, high car loans that break down, bad financial decisions that are made through desperation. And so that is a compounded wound. It is the wound of the wounded woman. It is the wound of the generational trauma through narcissism. It is the wound of the abused woman, but it is also the wound of the woman who acts in desperation, right? So the lesson of this is what would be one of the lessons that we could learn? Not to make choices based on desperation, to sit and think about our choices before we make actions, to look at our life partners and our life choices. Oh, I love that. Carolyn says setting boundaries. Yes, setting good boundaries, right? Having patience. And so instead of saying, oh my God, I'm so desperate, I need a car, just give me a car and I'll get a car loan. Oh, well, maybe I'll just save some money or I'll buy a beater car. Instead of, using it for a down payment, I'll use my down payment for a beater car and I'll drive it till it falls apart and I'll save more money and, making different choices. So there's a compounded generational thing that's going on where it's like, hey, we don't make choices out of desperation. We have good boundaries. We are really careful with who we partner with, right? And that is how we can work on breaking those boundaries or breaking those generational curses through actions. But then also we go to the past versions of ourselves and we say, past self, we're no longer desperate. And we can heal this. This is why I highly recommend Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, because he actually did studies that found that they went and they took there's several studies that he did. He's got a whole list of studies on his site, at least he used to. But they went and they took, I think it was about like 100 people. I could be wrong on the time frames. But essentially, these were all people that had surgery. And they said, okay, we're going to pray for half of these people and half we're not going to pray for. So prayers, meditations, good thoughts for their healing, right? And what they found was those people that they prayed for healed faster, died less often during surgery, had better outcomes, the whole 9 yards, right? And the people who did not have those prayers and meditations, There is more incidences of death and infections and poor surgical outcomes. What he didn't tell these people at the time was that the people they were praying for were 10 years in the past. And so this randomized group of people, they found that even by praying for people in the past, it seemed to affect their outcomes. Now, that is where when I read that, I started thinking, I was like, so we can't change that they had surgery in the past, but maybe those prayers, because remember, to energy wise, past, present, and future, it is all occurring at once. And so in the past, those past selves heard the prayers and felt the prayers and the energy from the future selves, and it affected them. What is a good book by Dr. Joe to start with? I love the book Becoming Supernatural. That's my favorite one. I cannot remember the other ones that I've read from him. Forgive me because it's been a while, but Becoming Supernatural is always the one that stuck with me as my favorite. So I would suggest maybe starting with that book. I know that you can usually even find them on audiobooks, which is awesome. Krista says, I love that book. Oh, yes, he also has the placebo effect. Yes, that's another great one. He is, people are like, oh, some people are kind of like a love-hate with Dr. Joe. But for me, I'm like, yeah, his energy is a little kind of aggressive and cocky, but like I just love his work, and I just think that it's such a valuable work. And that was really what got me to thinking about how we can heal different generations, how we can heal in the past. And so he really got me thinking about, wait, hold on. I think we can heal this. I feel like I was going to turn on the light, but the light switch is all the way over there. So I apologize for lighting, guys. I didn't think about bringing a light, a little ring light with me. But yeah, I think, and this is something, and I'm going to kind of go back to my mom a little bit. She was with this narcissist who, yeah, he had her thinking he was Jesus. Like, my mom's a very accomplished artist, and she goes, "Oh, I painted a picture of Jesus." And we're like, "Oh, mom, okay, cool." And I don't know, I might have it with me. Let me look. No, I don't. I think I left it at home. And we're like, "Oh, cool, show us the picture." And at first, like, "Oh, it's Christ and he's with some lambs and how cool." And I looked at the picture and I told my sisters, I go, "That's not Jesus, that's her ex." You know, she was painting this dude. Oh, thank you. Carolyn says Becoming Supernatural is free on audio for YouTube. So anyways, this guy had her like, okay, mind over matter, you can cure your diabetes and your heart disease just through mindset, right? And we're like, okay. Uh, like you drink some warm water and your diabetes is cured. And you know, there are extremes in this world. And I fully believe in faith healing. Do not get me wrong. I believe we can heal anything, right? But as I told my mom, I said, Mom, God and the universe inspires people to make medications, to make treatments, to create herbal concoctions and all of those things. And so we look at that healing on multiple levels. And I always tell people like, put out your fires first. If you need a medication, take a medication while you work on the spiritual and emotional, and create that compounding healing. And so I always want people to exercise caution because, like with my mom, she was just constantly told, oh, if you believe it, it'll go away. But she really wasn't doing the mindset work. She really wasn't eating healthy. She wasn't doing that stuff. And so it wasn't going to work for her with Dr. Joe. And that's why I love his book because he healed himself from a back injury that paralyzed him. And he did the mindset work. He was there laying in bed. He was doing the therapy and stuff. And so it is absolutely possible. And I don't want to say that it isn't because that's not true. Everybody can heal. But I also don't want people to hear what I'm saying and run off and stop all their medications either. We always are prudent and careful. So anyways, let's start into the generational trauma meditation. And if you guys haven't meditated with me before, we always start with 3 deep breaths and we go deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, and we fill up our lungs and our stomach and we just kind of reset our energy. And go the best you can. A lot of people might struggle if they're new to meditating, if they're new to this, do the best you can. I have people who are like, I have trouble visualizing. That's fine. We're just starting where we are and doing the best we can. And so if you're really good at it, you visualize, that's great. And if you're not so good at it, don't worry about it. It's the intention. It's the emotions that are behind this. And yeah, so we're going to jump into this, and we're going to just start by closing our eyes. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths in. So in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and push it out through the mouth. And final deep breath in and out. As we continue on the meditation, continue with your deep breathing as it feels right for you. As we breathe in and out, I want you to find yourself floating in a place that is in between time and space, floating through the stars, through the galaxy, through the very fabric of time. And through this fabric of time, I want you to notice the threads of energy around you. The threads of energy are the connections to yourself and your ancestors and all the generations that have come not only before you, but after you, all the generations that exist on different levels and layers of the universe. Notice the threads, their colors, their shapes, the energy. You can reach out and touch these threads if you would like, or you can just sit and watch them. Watch them glow and undulate. With these threads, I want you to focus your energy and intention on them. And I want you to ask your higher self, what do these threads need for healing today? And whatever comes to your mind is the right answer. There is no right or wrong answer. It could be love. It could be ice cream. It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever comes to your mind, I want you to hold on to that. Hold on to that thought, that emotion, that word. I want you to feel what that feels like, how it feels to send that element of healing, not only through your body, but through the DNA and the fabric of time, throughout all of the posterity before and after you. Let's take a deep breath in. And let's say out loud or in our minds, I send this healing energy backwards through time, through all layers, through all generations, so that all who came before me, all versions of myself and my ancestors, might receive this healing energy. I ask that this healing is sent through the fabric of time, through all dimensions, sideways, up and down. I claim this healing for myself and all generations. I ask this healing to be sent forward into the future, to the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, and beyond, through all generations, to receive this healing so that the pain of the past no longer affects the future. We send love, healing, and forgiveness to those of the past who have experienced things that are traumatic, that were difficult to deal with. We send forgiveness to those that were unable or unwilling to heal. knowing that they were doing the best that they could at the time. We ask this healing be sent to all those who are willing to accept it through their own agency, through their own power, allowing them to step into the healing energy. And as they step through this energy, they join us generation upon generation, standing together, allowing the healing energy to overtake and erase the past, the present, and the future traumas and difficulties that affect body, mind, and soul. We are so grateful for those that paved the path before us, who walked before us in generations past, for those who experienced the unthinkable traumas of the past. For their bravery and strength, we send energy, light, and healing to them, to all connected to them, throughout all threads of connection and all generations. Let's take a deep breath in. Breathe out. We'd just like you to just start saying the word thank you. And as you say the words thank you, envision that this word thank you reverberates through those threads of energy, all the way through to every generation. We send our gratitude. We are grateful for the learning, for the life experiences. We are grateful for all generations in the past, all generations in the future, all generations on every level, every dimension, for allowing us to learn, grow, change, and heal as eternal and divine spiritual beings and humans. We are so grateful for the experiences, for the healing, and for the connection. Send gratitude for the healing that we have received, that we will receive, and that we will continue to receive as this healing process continues through our lives. Take a deep breath in and release. Speaking out loud or in your mind, speak these phrases. I understand that my healing is my responsibility, that it is not my job to heal others, but that I have a unique opportunity to share my healing with those who are willing to heal and to receive the healing energies that I experience on my life journey. I understand that I have agency just as those before me have had agency, and that this healing work will not affect my agency or the agency of others without their permission. We ask that all of those throughout all generations and time are able and willing to accept this energy as it is their agency. We ask that they will continue not only to heal, but to support us and to reveal to us the other things that we need to heal, not only for ourselves, but for the generations of the past, present, future, and multidimensional layers. We are so grateful for these experiences, and we say thank you. We send thank you to the angels and the ancestors, to God, Creator, the universe, the ancient holy masters, for our support and healing today. We are so grateful for all those beautiful, energetic, spiritual beings and their support. We ask that the healed wounds be protected from being re-injured. We ask that the healing that we receive is complete, permanent, and irreversible, that it will only benefit us and those receiving it and create no harm to any. Take a deep breath in And we say thank you again. We heal and receive this with our families, with the past, present, and future. We release and return back into the present, wiggling your toes, wiggling your body, opening your eyes as we come back into the room. Oh, and we find a beautiful space of healing and restoration. I found that this is really interesting. As we were ending our meditation, my sister started calling me, and we're sending this healing right to all our families. And then my family member is like, oh, what's going on? And so this is I won't be answering this, but this is a great teaching moment. You might find that family members start reaching out to you, especially ones that you haven't talked to in a while, where they're like, I was thinking about you. Why was I thinking about you? What's going on? You might find that they might try to trigger you or rewound you. So be prepared if anybody reaches out to you, that is pretty normal and something that will likely, we have light again, something that may likely happen. And so I always just tell people, be prepared. And if your boundary is, I don't need to talk to that person, and I'm ignoring my sister because I'm talking, not because I don't want to talk to her, just by the way. But if you have a boundary that you set with someone where you're like, I want no contact with this person, you do not need to contact or connect with a person that you're no contact with, right? That's not what healing is. Healing is, I love you. I forgive you. I release you. I thank you for the journey, but we do not need to welcome these people back into our life just because we're healing things. And so please maintain your boundaries if that happens to you. Please do not allow yourself to be sucked into family traumas again. Please also make sure that you're staying well hydrated, that you're giving your body the rest and the restoration and the nourishment that it needs during the healing process. If you start noticing generational traumas or things that are coming up that, like, oh my gosh, this came up, I thought it healed, sit with it and be like, okay, what else am I missing with this? What else do I need to release? What else do I need to learn? And allow those repeating experiences to be teachers and to kind of give you that recognition of, okay, maybe I healed, like for me, I was focusing on love, on family love. Maybe there was like some little path that we needed to heal. And so ask again, what do I need to heal? And listen, right? And whatever pops to your mind is going to tell you what you need. If you are like, oh, I'm not really good with my intuition, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, there are 2 free intuition classes listed on my website where it says Watch Spirit Fluent. You scroll all the way to the bottom. Those classes are going to teach you how to kind of listen to that intuition better and develop that for yourself so that you can continue on the healing path of asking, what do I need? Where do I need to go? And listening to yourself and listening to that intuition. Because even I had a moment in time where I actually, before my mom went missing, one of the last conversations I had with her, she's a very intuitive woman, was, I don't have an intuition. Mine's broken. It doesn't work. Right. And, for me to be doing the work that I am now and then be able to say, that my intuition I felt didn't work once sounds silly, but it's true. I was like, why does everybody else have great intuitions and mine sucks? Right. And even talking to my mom is so funny. She was like, what happened last spring? I felt like I needed to pray for your son. And I'm like, oh, mama, we got stories to tell you. And she's like, and what happened last fall? I felt like I needed to pray for this grandchild. And we're like, oh, we'll tell you. So even though she was apart from us, she intuitively felt all those things, which was really amazing. And so we might end just a little bit early again. Like I said, I'm a little tired, and one of my boundaries is to not push myself right now because I did that last year and I just came out of a 6-month burnout. I don't need to go back into one, you know. There is also an older generational trauma class that will touch on different things than this class touched on, because obviously that one was 2 years ago. And so I'm teaching from a different space now. So if you want to learn more on generational trauma, there is also another class that's free on my website. You don't even have to enter an email or anything. They're all there. There's a lot on YouTube. So you can go watch either my YouTube or classes on my website to kind of expand on that. There's also an ancestral healing, because ancestral and generational are two different things. And so you guys, I guess you probably didn't think I was going to give you homework, but there you go. But if you're really looking at like going in further and learning more, I would suggest watching those other classes because they're available right now. This class will be posted when I am able, and I don't know when I will be able, just FYI. So I will hope by this weekend, but every time I give myself a timeline, I blow it out of the water. So please be patient with me as I get that up. Carolyn says, thank you. It's very helpful. Glad to hear from you. Hear you were with your mom. Looking forward to doing this again with you sometime. Yes, and I will be offering a lot more classes, more likely in the fall. We are looking at moving to Seattle. That move was actually supposed to happen very soon, and for obvious reasons has now been postponed a few weeks. So I would say look at after September before I start adding more classes again. But guys, there's like 25 free classes that you guys can watch now that are free and easy to access that can keep you busy until then. And yeah, I will send out a group email when that recording is up. And I would say just rinse and repeat, because generational trauma is many layers and many emotions and many experiences. So you have an opportunity to not only heal yourself, but a lot of other people and make some beautiful changes. So thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for being patient with me and allowing me to reschedule, because if it wasn't a crazy emergency, I would not have rescheduled on you guys. Thank you everybody for your well wishes, and thank you for your support. I very much am so grateful to all of you for being here. You make my day amazing. You make me realize that I'm doing the work that I'm meant to do and following my purpose. And I'm so grateful for you guys allowing me to do that with you. So, all right, beautiful people, have a wonderful Wednesday, and hopefully I'll see you in future classes. All right, bye everyone.